Big piece in the Journal today, page one, in which they talk about these Chinese negotiators who, in the Journal's words, recognized an opportunity here. The agreement would not force them to make economic policy changes that Washington had long insisted on. You essentially see this as a truce?
I do, Carl, and I think that point is really critical. When the U.S. Trade Rep Lighthizer released his Section 301 allegations in March of 2018, the goal was to get China to change its basic system of the subsidizing state-owned enterprises, innovation policy, forced technology transfer. The deal that's going to be signed tomorrow will really not touch any of those issues. It's political theater, as Kayla just described very accurately. There'll be, a couple of hundred people in the room extolling the virtues of the greatest deal in the history of deals. But will it really accomplish what the president and Robert Lighthizer set out to do in March of 2018? I don't think it will do that. And if you're waiting for phase two, you'll be waiting for a long, long time. I think we'll be disappointed on that regard as well.
You make it sound like the U.S. has gotten bought here for $200 billion. How confident are you they can actually buy that much?
Well, I'm not too confident. I think it's going to be very difficult for China to buy $100 billion a year for the next 2 years. There'll be a lot of creative accounting to make it seem like that's the case. The good news is we've stopped the dangerous escalation of tariffs. The bad news is that tariffs still remain, even with this phase one accord, at about 19% on all Chinese imports coming into the U.S., and that compares with a pre-trade war tariff rate of about 3%. So there's certainly a high level of tariffs remaining. As I said, this is political theater. This is not meaningful structural breakthroughs on issues that we supposedly held near and dear to our heart in confronting China.
But Stephen, if it is political theater, isn't that exactly why you want to see some of these tariffs remain in place? So that way there's still some sort of leverage, there's still something for these two countries to come to the table and negotiate around?
Well, China would like to roll back tariff rates, Morgan, to the levels that prevailed before this conflict began. And the U.S. is insisting that that China change its system to get that concession, and China's not going to do that.
I'm curious about the Treasury yesterday dropping the currency manipulator title after 4 or 5 months. And we talk about enforcement and the possibility of additional tariffs if they don't follow through. But, I mean, are we going to name them a manipulator again if they misbehave? Are we going to go back and forth and back and forth?
Carl, this is really sort of an unfortunate politicization of what had been a meaningful effort over a long period of time to hold countries accountable based on some rather tough analytical criteria, like their current account surplus, which in China's case had vanished, clear indications of intervention in currency markets, which China has actually been doing to boost its currency rather than to push its currency lower. So China had not hit those criteria. The IMF said the same thing when it reviews currency manipulation, where this all started from years and years ago. So the classification of China as a manipulator was groundless and meaningless. And now to remove that, I think even makes the whole exercise far more political than of any substance.
Stephen, I wonder what you think. There are reports out there that financial services could benefit from this phase one deal tomorrow. Obviously, we don't have any of the details yet. But what could that mean in terms of banks and other financial entities being able to operate more broadly in China?
Well, this is something that my former industry has been pushing for a long time, and this has to do more with ownership caps rather than operating as joint ventures. And this will certainly be viewed as a very positive sign by financial services, and has been long telegraphed that we're moving in that direction. But let's just go back to the basics. What is this deal supposed to really accomplish? It's supposed to provide relief for American manufacturing companies, American workers that have lost their economic livelihood because of a large imbalance with China. And will phase one be an important step on the road to providing that type of relief? I'm pretty skeptical of that, but others will argue to the contrary.
One last point, though, Steve. I mean, the hawks are not they're not done, right? They're not done fighting for that. Rick Scott was on our air and said he's all for trade, but how can you trade with someone who lies, cheats, and steals? What is the hawks' next move on China?
Oh, the hawks' next move is to say that we're going to keep the pressure on China, and we're going to go after phase two, which is going to get China to fundamentally change its behavior and in the way that Senator Scott and others were demanding. Good luck with that. It's not going to happen in an election year. I think we've got to take a long and hard look about the role that we play in the United States in fostering economic imbalances that leave us with trade deficits, not just with China, but with over 100 other countries. Why do we have that condition? It continues to put pressure on our families and our workers and our manufacturing companies. Those are tough issues for us to address as well.